Sounds good.
All right.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm gonna just give it another minute or two here and let a few more people join us, and then we'll go ahead and get started. And a big hello to everyone who is just hopping on. We are just gonna give it one more minute and let a few more people join, and then we'll get started. All right, let's kick things off. Thank you everyone for attending today. Design Master and Evolve are bringing you this presentation on managing your electrical model between design and construction. We've got the Director of Product for Evolve, Adam Heon here, and leader over at Design Master, David Robison. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing
Very
good.
Thanks.
Fantastic. So as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded. We'll forward the recording to all registrants. You can also find all of our recordings on the Evolve YouTube channel. So make sure you're following us over there. If you have any questions during this presentation, please submit them using the Q&A function in your Zoom toolbar, and we may have time at the end of the session to take a few questions. And if not, we'll do our best to follow up with you by email after the webinar. Fantastic. And with that, I'm passing it over to David to kick us off.
All right. Thank you very much. So my name is David Robison. I'm with a company called Design Master Software. And we're going to be talking today about how our software, ElectroBIM and Evolve Electrical, can work together for electrical design. So I'll be talking about ElectroBIM, and this is going to be used in the design stage. So a little bit of a background on myself. I've been working with electrical engineers since 2001, helping them with their design, first in AutoCAD and more recently in ElectroBIM in Revit. And so in that time, we've worked with over 600 different electrical engineering firms around the country, from small one-man shops to large multi-office design build contractors. So we've seen a lot of different ways people do their electrical design. So we've tried to distill that down into the software that we've put together in Revit. So I'm going to walk you through how our software works. Before I show you the software, I do want to show you a framework for how we think about electrical design. So I'm going to share my screen. And what I have here is what we call the electrical design triangle. And it's a triangle, electric. It's hard to write and talk at the same time. So it's got three sides to it, obviously. At the bottom is the Revit model itself. And this is what you are doing in Revit for laying out your design work, putting in your panels, connecting things together, circuiting things, inserting light fixtures and whatnot. But that's not all that happens with your electrical design when you're working in Revit. It's not just that Revit model. You also have the single line diagram. And then your calculations. And so your single line diagram is going to be in a drafting view in Revit, something separate from what you're doing with the Revit model. The calculations, some are in Revit because you have your panel schedules there. You've probably got some Excel spreadsheets. You might be using Easy Power or SKM or something like that for your calculations. And the issue that you always have is that you have three separate models. And anytime you make a change in one of these, you have to make a change in the other. So if you do something as simple as change a panel name, you make that change in your Revit model, you have to update that single line diagram. Then you also have to go over to your Excel spreadsheet, update the panel name there as well. You're in the single line diagram, you resize a panel, you're going to need to update that panel size in your Revit model. You need to go over to your Excel spreadsheet, update that panel size there as well. You're in the calculations, you notice a voltage drop issue, you upsize a wire for that. You need to have that wire size documented on the single line diagram. That's showing up in the Revit model. It needs to show up there as well. So again, anytime you make a change in one of these places, you're having to make a change in the other places as well. So what we're trying to do with ElectroBIM is to pull all three of these pieces together into Revit so that you have a single source of truth, one place that you're making all of these changes, and then it's updating in the other places like you would like it to work. So if I pull up my Revit model here, I have a single line diagram that we're going to work with. So this should be recognizable as a single line diagram. Don't get too hung up on the graphics. I know your single line diagrams don't look like this. They're customizable because we're just working in a Revit drafting view. But the way this works is we have this single line diagram. But if we run our highlight device and select this panel, we know that this panel is connected to this device in the Revit model. So we have that connection happening between the two. And this panel also shows up here on the panel schedule. And then we can use our software, ElectroBIM, to make a change to this panel. So I'll run the panel edit command in our software. And I'll take that LP1 panel. We have an LP1B. So we'll call this LP1A to have them a little bit more consistent in their naming. We're going to change it from a 100 amp to a 200 amp panel. That updates it in the Revit model, like you would expect. But then over on the single line diagram, we have that new panel name here as well. So it's LP1A. It's got the new panel size, a 200 amp panel. It also knew to upsize the feeder. We have a 200 amp feeder, 200 amp breaker, all on the single line diagram. You go over to the panel schedule. Again, the new name here, LP1A, the new panel size, new breaker size, a 200 amp breaker. So you make that change in one location and then it updates everywhere for you. So this is what we're trying to have automated with our software in Revit, taking advantage of that Revit model, of the building information model that you're creating, and then taking it to the single line diagram and to the calculations. For the calculations, there's a lot that we do. We can do breaker and wire sizing. We can do voltage drop, fault calcs, arc flash selective coordination. I'll just show you the voltage drop to give you a flavor for what we're doing. So here I have on my single line diagram, some of my voltage drops actually listed. So we have these voltage drops and they actually exceed the 2% that you would want for your feeders. We can go take a look at these in our voltage drop schedule as well. So we can see all of the voltage drops in the entire project here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on our automatic voltage drop calculation because right now we're calculating it, but it's not upsizing the wires. So I'll turn on that wire upsize. So let's upsize our feeders automatically based upon the voltage drop, and we'll upsize our branch circuits as well. And then we'll ask the software to redo the calculation. So we're going to run the calculation. It's going to take a look at all those wire sizes, see anything that has these exclamation points where they're over, where the voltage drop is too high. It's going to resize the wires to account for that for us. So it will take a moment. It will do all of these calculations and give us the new numbers here. And when it's doing this, it's updating again, not just the calculated values for the voltage drop schedule, but it's doing it everywhere in the project. So we see now we've got these voltage drops under 2%. All of the totals are under 5. The branch circuits are all under 3% now. And if we go to that single line diagram, the voltage drops here are pulling from that same information. So we're seeing that we have the new voltage drops being reflected here. And then we have this new wire size, the 250 amp panel. It's got a 250 amp breaker, but it's actually got a 400 amp wire. So that new wire size is being reflected here as well. And there's a lot of calculations happening. You notice that this one's 400.A and this one's actually 400. So we have 400 amp feeders. The reason for that is that when you upsize for voltage drop, you need to upsize that ground as well. So we actually call that out as a separate call out in the feeder schedule. So we're doing all of those calculations, taking that into account for you. So all of that's happening automatically. So this is what we are doing on the design side with our software. But design is not all that you have happening in your project. You eventually need to go and build it. And so that's where Evolve comes into play. So we have the ability to export and import information from Evolve. So we can run our Evolve export command, and this is going to export a conduit run schedule. So going back to our model here, we are very much, is that going to update? It is, there we go. You know, we've got our electrical design triangle over here with our Revit model, our single line diagram, and our calculations. And that's where we work, and that's where we think. And for the designers, that's the kind of stuff that they're concerned about. Then we've got Evolve over here. And Adam will walk you through how that works. But what we want to do is we want to take some of our information, and we want to pass it over, pass our wire sizes, so that when you're actually laying out your conduit for the construction purposes, it's actually being pulled from that conduit size that corresponds to the wire size that we're using. And then we also can take, when you lay out those conduits in Evolve, we can take those lengths back, and for our voltage drop, use the lengths that you have in Evolve. So here is another model that we have. This is what Adam's going to be working in. We again have just a couple panels laid out with our software. We have this single line again linked with what's happening in the model. And for the transfer, you run our Evolve export, and you give it a file name, and you run this export, and it creates this Excel file. And that's what you hand over to Evolve. And so now I'm going to actually hand this whole presentation over to Adam with that file, and he will walk you through what you can do with that and what you can do with his software.
Awesome. Thanks, David. I saw a quick question here. Are the detail item families included with the purchase of the one of Design Master?
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. That's a good question. So we provide the single line diagram families with the software. So we have these out of the box. You can modify them, customize them to make them look like what you want, or you can use ours if you're happy with this. What you are using on the model, all of these families, you use the families that you already have. So we don't replace the model families, because you already probably have stuff that you're using for your panels. And then the single line diagrams, you either can use ours or modify them.
Awesome. Cool. I will share my screen and we'll jump to the handoff here. So for those who don't know me, my name's Adam Hean. I'm the Director of Product with Evolve here. And similar to David, I've been in the electrical construction side since the early 2000s, and obviously been with Evolve 6-7 years now. So kind of talking about different contractors, or on our side, we're seeing the same thing. You know, there's a lot of design build out there. A lot of companies out there have different teams. They have their design team and they have their construction team. So one of the things they're working with is trying to get that that data between the teams to start sharing information, right? Because a lot of rebuilding of information from the EC side. And when you're doing design in-house, obviously there should be fewer barriers. So let's just kind of talk about kind of some workflows. David went and generated the one line on the design. So the workflow for Evolve is I'm going to fire up my run schedule, and I'm going to import this from Design Masters here. Gives me my 5 runs here, all sized and the appropriate standard with my wire fill all filled out. So I have all my data in the system now. With a recent update, we have our auto route. So I'll walk through, let's throw out a couple different scenarios, right? We could be in a design stage where we're trying to get conceptual designs figured out, possibly looking at some lengths, routings. You know, maybe we're not at the construction phase yet where we really know what we want. So auto route could be a good tool for this. So the way we use this is we can start the command and click my pathway here that I've laid out. This will give me a list of all my runs. I can go ahead and select those and run them. So the 2 prerequisites of the model here are the pathway and then the equipment. So I have all my equipment placed where I think I want it. I have my pathway going down these corridors. And now with auto routing, you can see all my conduits have been labeled, sized with all the run data here. Now you'll see there's some crisscrossing here, right? This is gonna goes to the next phase of actually making this buildable. So we're going to start adding pull boxes, moving conduits around. offsetting things around objects. We got to go through that whole coordination phase. But let's just say we're not there yet, and we want to play around with some different designs. So I could certainly just hit undo, or I could use our multi-select tool here. Select my runs, clear those out, and let's just say this pathway needs to go into out of the corridor down here, and let's just say I have to avoid that column. So we'll use my insert offset tool and just let's put a 14-inch horizontal offset, and we will do it. Just gotta change my selection mode real quick. There we go. Must have hit undo on it. Let's go back to this. Go back to insert offset, my 14-inch offset. Select my duct. So I'll put the offset right about here, and I will offset it around that column, right? So Evolve provides various quick tools for modifying elements, disconnecting elements, reconnecting, offsetting, selecting, alignment. A lot of good tools just for everyday modeling. So now I have this new path. I can go back to auto route, select my path, and again, run them all. So I had deleted everything. I could certainly just delete a few runs and rerun 1 or 2 runs at a time. I don't have to keep rerunning everything. But this acts as a good tool to get basically your point-to-point routing along all these pathways. And Evolve will automatically, again, size and label all that run data. So at this point, again, maybe we're still in a design phase. We're not really into construction yet. We might want to pass this back to engineering. So if I open up my run schedule, what Evolve is also doing are 2 things here with the runs. We're also calculating our modeled length, and we're also calculating our bend angles. So you can imagine I'm way overbent on these routes because I'm zigzagging all over the place. So obviously we'd have to look at these runs and break them up with some pull boxes and various pull points. But this data, as far as the run length goes, can be valuable for the design side, as again, David has to check voltage drop or any other impacts that the length would have. So from here, I can certainly just export this back to Excel. And then I would just hand it off back to David. So yeah, David, I think I will hand it back to you, and you can talk about what you would do with it next. Oh, you're on mute.
Once we get that back, you run our import command. So you gotta be, we're importing at this point back into ElectroBIM. And I don't actually have that file. I don't know if you can drop it in the chat or if I can pull it.
I can. 1 second.
See if we can. We'll demonstrate how this transfer happens live. You actually go talk to other people in your company, and you coordinate things with them. This is human interaction portion of the thing, and then you get the file from them.
I thought those 2 teams, we don't talk to each other. We're supposed
to. Well, we don't. We try not to. But there is still that opportunity that you have to talk with other people.
That's really what we're doing. We're breaking down barriers here.
Yeah. And I'm gonna find that file and get it into this computer. Do not judge my messy desktop. Just get that out of the way. Okay, so we got that export that we pulled back from Adam. We'll come in here. And if we look before I do the import, if we take a look at one of these panels in our panel edit command, you can see that we've got our feeder information and we have calculated wire lengths. So this is just, doing its best guess based on where things are located. This is what we're estimating they are for the lengths. It works for, your engineering calculations, but since we are doing both the design and the construction, we can actually do better than that. So we import that value back in. And now when we go take a look at that in our software, it has a fixed value, and this is the number that has been pulled in from the evolve model. So we pull in the specific value that's being that was used for that length, and that's how that works. And then this will feed back into your voltage drop, your fault calculations. All of those are then going to be based upon those numbers. And that's it for the import back in. It's fairly straightforward. We're just pulling those lengths in and then moving from there to do our calculations.
Yeah, and as the project progresses, I mean, it's probably a multiple handoff back and forth a few times before construction phase enters. And then I would assume maybe one more time once construction phase is actually executed and I start knowing what my actual links are going to be. And David, so Evolve has the ability to define like install links and stuff, and I assume we could just align the import with that value as well.
Correct. You guys export a number of different lengths, and we just check them and find the most accurate one that's in that file. So we just kind of go down the list of the, I don't remember which ones you guys export, but we just start looking for them. As soon as we find the length, we use that one.
Awesome. Fantastic. I guess at this point, we'll open it up for any questions, whether it be specifically what we discussed or anything on ElectroBIM or Evolve as well.
Yeah, and while you all are doing that, do we have access to chat where I can send chat to everybody? I was gonna say,
Yep.
There is the question, okay, where do you go from here? If this looks interesting, for our software, we have a free trial. You can download that from our website. You can also schedule a workflow review where I can look at what you're doing in Revit and talk with you about that. Basically do a demo of our software, but I'm happy to schedule that as well. If I can get, I am having trouble getting it to do chat to everybody.
There should be a little blue drop down, and you should be able to switch it to send to everyone.
Oh, mine doesn't say that. Yeah, mine just says to
David,
us.
why don't you just send it and I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, there you go. That works perfect. So those are the two links. The first one is a webinar review where we can take some time, walk through what you're doing in Revit. I can show you my software, answer any questions you and your design team have. You can also just download the software and try it. So we have that. It's not a time-limited trial at this point. We used to do a 30-day trial, but no one has 30 days to try software. So it actually is an unlimited trial. It'll just watermark the output, so you can take as long as you want to evaluate the software.
And if you are a Design Master user who is interested in seeing more of what Evolve can do, I made sure to drop a link in the chat so you can meet with our team. All right. I'm not seeing any more questions come through. I see a hand raised. So the best way to get us your question would be to enter it in the chat. Or absolutely feel free to reach out to us through our support channels. Okay, great. With that being said, Adam, David, anything to wrap us up today?
Nope, I think that pretty much does it. I'm excited to, yeah, I'm excited to get some feedback from everybody. So.
yeah, contact us with all those links if you want to learn more.
Thank you so much, both of you, for putting on this presentation for our audience today. And to everyone watching, thank you for attending. And we'll be sure to follow up with that recording. And you can always find our past recordings on the Evolve MEP YouTube channel. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.